MidCoast Council's annual Waterway and Catchment report card is celebrating its 10th anniversary. With over 1,900 individual water quality samples taken across our 6 major catchments, we now have important water quality data that will help us protect our catchments and estuaries and allow us to plan and implement management actions that will help improve them into the future.
In 2009, Council adopted the Great Lakes Water Quality Improvement Plan, and the Water Quality Improvement Plan identified the need to collect information about the health of our estuaries.
Having 10 years of report card data allows us to identify trends and cycles that are taking place in our natural environment, but they also allow us to plan for management actions that can help improve our waterways and then also monitor the actual impacts of those management actions once they've been put in place.
When we first started collecting data about the Wallamba River, we received a D grade, and that represents the poorest site in all of the sites in Wallace Lake.
The main issues in the Wallamba were really the gradual decline in water quality, which was reported by our industry partners and the community.
In our leases that we had in the Wallamba River, we were facing, back at that time, 15, 20 years ago, we were chasing high mortality we were noticing in our stock, which was attributed to acid sulphate runoff from the Fregala Swamp and Wallamba River. And so that was identified and we had to move out of those areas and stop farming there because we couldn't sustain those losses.
There'd been a legacy of past clearing and agricultural development and rural and residential development. And the river systems had suffered a degree of impairment in their condition. It did indicate that we needed to implement catchment actions to improve the runoff from the catchment into the Wallamba River.
One of the main issues on the Wallamba at the time was riverbank erosion, and that was coming from boat usage of the river. We had conversations with the users of that river about the problem and what they thought the potential solutions were. And so that meant, in reality, winding back skiing from 15 kilometres of river to 9 kilometres. We've seen water quality improvement there because there's not the erosion that was happening. We've seen the riparian zones restore, so we're getting a water quality improvement.
Over the last 10 years, Council's been implementing a range of on-ground actions across the Wallamba River to improve water quality. This included fencing off riparian zones to exclude stock from the riverbanks, undertaking revegetation with native species, and installing erosion control measures, including rock fillets to reduce boat wash and reduce the sediment input to the river.
This is a project, rock fillet project, and some planting on the riverbank, which was done a number of years ago, and we've had really good success here. The mangroves have recruited really well behind the rocks, between the rocks and the bank. That's helping stabilise the bank, and so that's really halted the erosion at this site. The plantings have done exceptionally well, so we've got a mix of species here that have grown right up in the riparian zone, and that all bodes really well for the long-term health of this riverbank.
Currently trialling new techniques to address riverbank erosion using timber fillets and reuse of oyster shell to improve water quality and aquatic habitat.
Just like the rock fillets, these timber fillets are designed to create a low energy environment, and you get mangrove seeds like these ones. These are off the grey mangrove, the Avicennia, and they tend to get deposited behind these structures and then, yeah, hopefully recruit. And you can see other parts of this structure where we've had really good natural recruitment, and that just accelerates the process of rehabilitating this riverbank. These are some of the oysters that we've got placed on the bank here. They're growing pretty well. They've survived the big flood this year and the little flood last year, and so we're really happy with how they're going. They're providing some good habitat for other species like snails, so we're really starting to improve the diversity and the natural values of this system that was actively eroding previously.
These islands have a history of dairy farming, which goes back to the 19th century. When we first came here, they had paddocks. They were revegetated with trees from the council nursery.
What the scientists really demonstrated in our catchments was the importance of ground cover and how it was a very, very cost-effective way of improving water quality was to have better grazing management and in turn better ground cover. So once ground cover drops below about 70%, it get an exponential increase in water runoff.
With the revegetation, a lot of if there are flooding events, the silt gets caught on the island a lot better with the revegetation. And so obviously that extends to better water quality in the lake and the river.
The Darrawang wetlands is a natural coastal floodplain wetland system. It's located between Tuncurry and Halliday's Point and between the Wallamba River and the ocean. It was a degraded wetland system. From about the 1940s onwards, there'd been over 20 kilometres of artificial drains established. And so instead of being a functional native natural system which purifies water and stores carbon, it was actually very impaired. It's underlain by acid sulphate soils that actually produced acid pollution which flowed to the Wallamba River. Council and other stakeholders, including state and national funding providers, together with the community, commenced a restoration action within the system. In order to manage and remediate the landscape, it was important to recreate as close as we possibly could the pre-disturbance or the natural hydrology of the system.
We have 2 national parks that are right on the Wallamba River, the Minimba Nature Reserve and the Darrawang Nature Reserve, and they protect 1,300 hectares of wetlands that flow into the Wallamba River. The wetlands are really important for water quality. They act like the kidneys of natural systems, so they're able to filter out sediments, nutrients, pollutants that all contribute to poor water quality in rivers. We've been doing work on feral animals, on weed control, habitat restoration with nest boxes, and also monitoring of wildlife recovery.
On the site behind us here, which is the Darrawang Swamp, we've been containing and hopefully eradicating the Ludwigia longifolia, which is taken over post-fire.
The Ludwigia sort of takes over our native species, and at the moment we're suppressing it, and the native species are taking over that now. So we're getting on top of it.
There is a few threatened species there, the jabiru and also the Wallam froglet, which we came across a few times while we were working out here. Water quality is extremely important to those threatened species that are here.
We've got 400 nest boxes in Darrawang, Napangat, Kaiwarik State Forest. We've found like potoroos, quolls, we've got echidnas, bandicoots, we've got a lot of animals of different range.
Council undertakes wide-scale feral animal controls across Darrawang and the Minimba landscapes in conjunction and with support of Hunter Local Land Services and National Parks. So we undertake this work to reduce the key threat of fox predation on many of our small and medium-sized native animals, including bandicoots, long-nosed potoroo, brush-tailed phascogale and the eastern chestnut mouse.
The project has been hugely successful. We've infilled over 75% of the artificial drains that are in the landscape. It was very impacted by the drainage network and legacy clearing, and there was very little life. To now see it a vibrant and functioning wetland on a really good trajectory. There are economic benefits, there are community benefits, and there are certainly environmental benefits of the work.
My ancestors would call that sick country. So being a part of the recovery process and helping it come back to what it once was has been extremely rewarding.
The remediation work that's been undertaken by Council, which is the reflooding of some of the acquisition of some of the flood zones and covering the acid sulphate up, has permitted us over the last 5 to 10 years to actually revisit those leases and go back there and grow oysters in the Wallamba River again.
The scale of the problem is such that it's beyond any one body of people, whether it's community, landowners, government agencies. The only way forward is to work in partnership.
Bringing a waterway back to production is a great achievement for Council and for the farmers and the landowners up there.
With consistent and extensive efforts to stabilise banks, manage boat wash, keep cattle out of the river and improve the quality of wetlands along the Wallamba River, we've seen significant improvements in ecological health of our estuary. We now consistently receive B and C grades, and that's a great improvement from a D grade that we received some time ago. It's really great to be celebrating the 10-year anniversary of producing the report card, and the Wallamba River is a great example of a project that the community can be really proud of.